Y'all heard of Big Trouble in Little China? Well, we're going to take a trip into Little Tokyo for a big showdown. Let's get into it. And the movie I'm going to review today is Showdown in Little Tokyo. This film was released in 1991. It's rated R. It's only 79 minutes long, had a budget of $8 million, dollars, and upon release only made 2.2. There's a reason why it's only 79 minutes long that I'll get into later, and the reason why it only made 2.2 is it got a very limited release, and in most countries went direct to video because Warner Brothers had no faith in the film, so they say. And in this film, we got Dolph Lundgren, Brandon Lee in his first film role as two LA cops. We got Tia Carrera and another gentleman who I'm not going to try to say his name, but he's been in a ton of movies over the years. I'm not going to say his name, I'm going to butcher the hell out of it, so I'm not going to try to say it. And this movie was directed by Mark Lester. Mark Lester, I did a review on his first film 2 weeks ago called Class of 1984, which I highly recommend. He did Firestarter. He's the one they brought in after Carpenter got fired. And he did Commando, which is probably his biggest film. And then he did this one. And then everything after this, it was always independently. He raised the money himself and shot it himself with no studio interference because of this film right here we're going to talk about. And Dolph Lundgren's an LA cop, and his new partner, which I'm going to get into how to get introduced, which is kind of strange. We see flashbacks in the movie. I'm going to get into how they meet, but we see flashbacks in the movie. It's set up why Dolph Lundgren's pissed at the main bad guy. That when Dolph Lundgren was a young boy, he was living in Japan, and this guy killed his mom and dad, who ends up being the main bad guy in this film. And that's what makes Dolph Lundgren really want to kill this guy without doing proper police work. But in the beginning of the film, Dolph Lundgren is eating breakfast at this little Japanese restaurant, and he knows the owner. They have a little banter back and forth. And the Yakuza come in. They're running Little Tokyo, and they own a brewery, which I'll get into what their plan is. But they come in and try to strong-arm this little lady for money every month, or bad things are going to start happening to her restaurant. Dolph Lundgren steps in, starts beating the shit out of these guys. Brandon Lee comes in, starts helping beat up these guys, but they don't know each other are cops yet. The Yakuza flee, shoot up the place, and take off in a car. And Brandon Lee and Dolph Lundgren point their guns at each other and show their badges. And they both realize, oh shit, we're cops. And Brandon Lee realizes this is his new partner. He came there to meet his new partner. Why didn't he meet at the police station instead of a little Japanese restaurant? Who the hell knows? Who cares? This movie's so batshit crazy, it doesn't matter. And after that, at first, Brandon Lee's the uptight cop. Dolph Lundgren's more the loose cop. That doesn't last long, and that's because the movie's so short. There's plot points cut out, so before you know it, they're really good friends, and Brandon Lee cares about Dolph Lundgren and vice versa, which is really good because they have great chemistry together, and their banter back and forth fabulous. They do work off each other really well in this movie. And then we're introduced to Tia Carrera at this club, this funky restaurant club type place where they serve sushi on naked women lay on a table, and they put the sushi, they lay it out on them, and then people sit around and eat it. It's crazy. This is crazy as it sounds, and it's as crazy as it looks. But Tia Carrera's one friend gets her decapitated by the main bad guy, and they kidnap Tia Carrera. And they don't show it, but they allude to it that she gets sexually assaulted by the main bad guy. And Dolph Lundgren shows up and rescues her, takes her back to his house, and Brandon Lee's there too. And before long, Dolph Lundgren and Tia Carrera have sex. And when they realize the Yakuza are coming to raid his house, Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee have this little moment, and I have to say this quote because I laughed my ass off when he said it. It's a WTF quote for sure. He looks at Dolph Lundgren and he goes, "Just so you know, when you undressed before I saw you, you got the biggest dick I've ever seen on a man." And I laughed my freaking ass off. I haven't watched this movie in a while. Last night was the first time I've seen it in a while. I'm like, where would that quote come from? Come on now. But it's funny as hell. It just goes along with the rest of the movie. The movie's freaking nuts. There's a gun battle, and then they all get kidnapped. Tia Carrera, Dolph Lundgren, and Brandon Lee. And then we get a scene right out of Lethal Weapon 1 and Tango and Cash. Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee are strapped to these, like, something, and they start getting electrocuted. And the Yakuza leave with Tia Carrera. Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee break loose. We have a fight at the garbage dump where they're being held. And then they get away, but the Yakuza still have Tia Carrera. And this is where we get our final showdown. The Yakuza own this brewery, which their whole plan is to distribute beer and drugs to the brewery. Well, Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee show up. They get the girl back. There's a big fight. And Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee win. And that's the end of the film. Now, this movie is not perfect. There are a lot of problems. Besides the fact that it's 79 minutes and they cut out a lot of plot when they recut the film. But the movie moves at a quick pace that you can just have a good time with it. It's not the greatest thing. It's a B movie action. It's a B action movie for sure. And it's a little cheesy. It's a little over the top. It's tongue in cheek. And that's fine. The actors are all doing good work. They're fun to watch. And the action scenes are handled pretty well. And I would give this film a 7 out of 10. I really would. Brandon Lee is fantastic in this film. And he's fantastic in the 3 movies he did. He was always fantastic in. And he would, unfortunately, after what happened on the set of The Crow, with him passing away, not only for his life, but his career. His career, I could see Brandon Lee being a big action star, but also a really good actor as well. He had charisma. He was great on screen, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But in this film, he's really good. Although I will say Rapid Fire, the one he did right after this, is a better action film overall. And obviously, The Crow was his best film. And like I said, again, it was just unfortunate he's no longer with us, because I think he would have been working for a very long time in Hollywood. Not that that's the most important thing. His life was the most important thing. But anyway, Dolph Lundgren's good too, but Brandon Lee kind of outshines him in this film, but they're very good together. Now, the movie's only 79 minutes long because Mark Lester's original cut was 90 minutes. They had a test screening. Warner Brothers held a test screening. It must have been bad because Warner Brothers lost faith in the film, brought in the same editor to cut down Steven Seagal's Out for Justice to the 90 minutes that movie is, and cut this movie down to 79 minutes. And then they released it kind of limited. That's why it only made $2.2 million. And it's a shame. I think it's a fun movie. Although, like I said, with them cutting it down, it loses a lot of plot points. It basically goes from action scene to action scene with just a few minutes of talking in between and setup. But you could have a blast with this film. It's short. Like I said, 79 minutes. It'll fly right by. So if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. I give it a 7 out of 10. There are problems. It's not perfect, but there's enough badass stuff in there that it's worth watching. And Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee are terrific. For them alone, it's worth watching. And that's it for me for Showdown in Little Tokyo. Have you ever seen this movie? What are your thoughts? Leave a comment down below. I would greatly appreciate that. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, all that great stuff. And I hope you all have a great weekend. I will be back soon with another review. Thanks.